We build AI that predicts what personal injury lawsuits will settle for. The vehicle of which we deliver our valuations is through the demand package. And so you can think of the technology that we create. It's like an Iron Man suit that our people wear internally that help produce super comprehensive demands at scale on behalf of the firm. If you're familiar with technologies that are used on the other side, so Colossus, this is a software that insurance carriers use to pool data together and essentially use that data to minimize the value of every case and lowball all the good plaintiff attorneys that we work with. We are the anti-Colossus. Everything that we do by way of our demand packages, the contents of them, serves to maximize the value of the case.
Welcome to the Tip the Scales podcast, where we discuss running and growing your law firm. I'm your host, Maria Monroy, president of LawRank. Today we have Ray from EvenUp. He's one of the co-founders. Although Ray is a good friend, I cannot pronounce his last name. English is my second language, so that's my excuse. Today we talked about AI, specifically EvenUp and their technology, which is AI-based, and what they do, and I'm not going to do this justice, is they draft demands. It sounded a lot more complicated than that. We also talked about Ray's story, which kind of ties into what he's doing now, and it gives it meaning. And I had heard it before, and the moment I heard it, it was like the second time I had ever spoken to Ray. He starts telling me his story, and I was like, wait, can we please stop? Like, I need to get you on this podcast. You need to tell this story. I love it. We talked about the importance of telling people stories, and we talked about how tools can really help law firms scale. And it's funny because it's a theme that keeps coming up with lawyers when I talk to them. They're like, we want to scale. We want to automate things. I think EvenUp is an amazing product. All of our clients that use it absolutely love it. I get nothing for telling you about it. I get nothing for having Ray join me. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. We want to offer our listeners an exclusive deal. Right now, you can visit lawrank.com/report to get a free competitor performance report. The report will include your top 5 digital competitors and how they're performing in your market, how you measure up to your competitors in the top 3 metrics, and that is referring domains, content, and monthly traffic, and a local SEO report. And this is a visual, it's a map, and this is tracking your Google business profile, and it's going to show you how you rank within a 1-mile radius. Again, all you have to do is go to lawrank.com/report. We will also be putting this in the show notes.
So my name is Ray. I'm the co-founder and COO of EvenUp.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I know I forced you. So funny story. I guess I had met Ray many, many times and forgot him every single time. So he's never going to let me live it down. But why don't you tell us really quickly what EvenUp does? And then I want to talk about why it's a meaningful business for you, like the story behind it, why this means so much to you.
Gotcha. That's it's going to be a little bit heavy. So in terms of what we do, EvenUp, we're a software company based out of San Francisco. What we do really, really well is build software that predicts what personal injury lawsuits will settle for.
Is this AI?
Yes, this is AI.
So everyone that is so obsessed with AI right now, listen up. And you guys know that I don't have vendors on the podcast very often. I am very picky, but anyways, keep going.
I feel so special. Thank you so much. We build AI that predicts what personal injury lawsuits will settle for. The vehicle of which we deliver our valuations is through the demand package. And so you can think of the technology that we create. It's like an Iron Man suit that our people wear internally that help produce super comprehensive demands at scale on behalf of the firm. If you're familiar with technologies that are used on the other side, so Colossus, this is a software that insurance carriers use to pool data together and essentially use that data to minimize the value of every case and lowball all the good plaintiff attorneys that we work with. We are the anti-Colossus. Everything that we do by way of our demand packages, the contents of them, serves to maximize the value of the case.
That's amazing. How is it different from, because I know there are other demand companies now.
Yeah, so the other demand companies are overseas, so you can outsource overseas, and that's totally fine if that's what you want to do. The way we're different, we're the only company that's actually creating technology for these demands, like software for these demands. So again, that Iron Man suit kind of idea, we hire, former defense counsel, ex-claim adjusters, top paralegals that have been in the space for 10 plus years. They wear our technology like that Iron Man suit to prepare these demands at scale, scaling themselves one to many. They have a lot of knowledge and experience in this space. They've been doing this for a while, where as opposed to like companies that you might work with overseas, they might be like doing this for the first time or have no idea of how the law works within the US. They're just kind of trained to summarize things in a certain way. They have no actual kind of understanding exactly of what they're doing. There are some better ones where it's like, they might have nurses and stuff like that are based in these, other countries. That said, the whole thing that still rings true is not a lot of experience or having, practiced within the US. Like everybody that we have on the team is based within the US that you'd be working with. The other component is like when it comes to grammatical errors or anything like that, like we use American English. Right. You might get like British English depending on like where you're kind of outsourcing this work to and stuff. But yeah, that's.
And what's the biggest benefit to a law firm of going with you versus doing it in-house?
So the biggest benefit of essentially using EvenUp versus doing this in-house, I mean, there's a couple things. So at the end of the day, if you could totally like hire a team of demand writers and kind of streamline your processes such that you have like intake folks, you have people who are gathering the medical records and getting the requisite information that they need to work up the value of the case and then funneling that to a demand writing team. You could totally do that. And then you wouldn't necessarily need to have like EvenUp as that demand writing team. But that said, that's where you have to take on the responsibility of like sourcing the talent, training the talent, get these demands done in the way that you want, dealing with turnover, which that's a huge kind of factor within this space. Finding good people is hard. A lot of firms that we work with actually don't even streamline it in the way that I just kind of described. A lot of firms will have like case managers or paralegals or the attorneys doing this themselves. And at the end of the day, whether it's like, if you think about like what your case manager is doing, they're doing like 50 things within the firm.
Right.
Like these, these folks are like unsung heroes within the firm where they're speaking with the client, getting the medical records, they're negotiating with claim adjusters, and then they have like a quota that they have to hit in terms of like demands per week or month or whatever. What we want to do is basically take this demands portion off of their plate, which demands, as much as I would like to say that this is the most important part of the process, it's not. It's absolutely not. The most important part is the information gathering stage. Getting the requisite information that we need to craft a stellar demand, that is the most important part. And then you can pass all of the information our way, documents, etc., for us to actually draft that stellar demand and save you the 5 to 10 hours that you would spend on each individual case.
But you're also, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also using aggregate data to say this is what we think this case is worth?
That's right. So for the damages section, this is where we'll outline an estimate for each element of loss. So we're talking about pain and suffering, loss of earnings, loss of services, past and future medicals. Every dollar value that we cite within the demand, we will back up in some shape or form. With pain and suffering, this is where the verdicts and the settlement data comes in. So we collect a lot of anything that kind of exists in terms of verdicts that you could use other services for, like we have that data. But then we also collect settlement data, which is reported.
So the longer you guys, the more people that join you guys, the better this is going to work in long term, or no?
That's right. So one of the key kind of components of our company, and it kind of rings true through our name. So EvenUp, the whole purpose of why we called the company EvenUp is because we're trying to level the playing field, even up the playing field. And so
wait, sorry to interrupt, but like, so in theory, you guys could start raising what cases are worth.
That's right. By way of doing the demands, of course, we are collecting a lot of information on these cases and by looking at the medical records, the injuries, the treatments, and logging all of this information.
So let's talk about, how did you get into this?
That's kind of like a roundabout story.
I love the story, so let's tell it.
In 2004, my dad was involved in a catastrophic motor vehicle accident that left him with a permanent disability for the rest of his life.
This was in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm. And so, long story short, we as a family went through the struggle of trying to negotiate with the insurance carrier, try to get a fair settlement.
Did you hire a lawyer?
We did, but there's like this aspect of like, it also matters who you hire.
Oh, absolutely.
Working with, like there is a quality factor there. My parents are still thankful for who they chose to kind of represent them in this case. But at the end of the day, I think there was probably a better lawyer that they could have worked with, because at the end of this was just kind of a referral. Like my parents were two immigrants, like they just worked with, another lawyer that could speak Polish, and that's the language that my dad spoke, right? So it's just wasn't much going on in terms of thinking like who is like kind of the best lawyer for this type of case or anything like that, right? It was just like, who can I communicate with, right? Which was the main thing that they were kind of thinking. But
I get it. I'm an immigrant, and my mom went through a divorce, and when she did, like the prerequisite was they need to speak fluent Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely. That is super important at the end of the day, to get the proper. If you can communicate the same language, then you can get the right story.
Absolutely.
Right? In their own words, like they can feel more comfortable explaining how they feel, articulating all of that, and being vulnerable.
1,000%.
I still think it's good for that reason, but honestly, someone more experienced would have been better.
So what happened with the case?
Essentially, after like 3 years of my mom working multiple jobs, she was like working 3 jobs to put food on the table. My dad saw that, and he essentially was like, oh my gosh, like we need mom to stop working so hard. So we ended up settling for a fraction of what my dad's case was worth. As a family, we walked away with like $200,000 to basically support a family of 5 for the rest of their life.
Yeah, no,
and that's like,
and
again, like my dad couldn't work, right? My dad couldn't work after that experience. This story was not like what created me, like made me think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like Batman now, and I'm gonna go fight insurance carriers. Like,
now.
Yeah, no, so like I never really kind of thought of this ever since then. And really what that did was, after that all happened, my parents were like, okay, Ray, like you got to start working now. Like you got to help provide for the family. And so at a very young age, I had to become more entrepreneurial, had to think about different ways to make money. And I mean, I really do thank my parents. I'm very grateful for my parents for having like taught me this lesson, where it's like, as long as I had like my 2 hands and my brain, I could always find a way to support myself, right? But that said, that's kind of what led me onto this entrepreneurial journey. Like I went through college and ended up moving to Hong Kong and essentially working at PricewaterhouseCoopers as an accountant / a risk consultant. Quickly found that I went into tech, started my first company.
But how did you start EvenUp? How did the idea originate? Because I know your background is tech. You were in tech. You were not in the legal space. But how did it come about?
Yeah, so in terms of how EvenUp started, so it was very interesting. We were in San Francisco. My friend Rami.
You're so tech.
Yeah, no, we were in San Francisco in Dolores Park. It's like a very popular park to hang out at in the weekend. And so my co-founder, but then really good friend, Rami, was just talking to me. He's like, have you ever heard of commercial litigation finance? And at that time, there was this company that was like really, really cool. It's called Legalist. What they did was they did litigation finance for small businesses that were going up against big Goliath defendants. And this was all brought to us by our third co-founder, Sam. He is a former defense counsel, did a lot of like personal injury, wrongful death kind of cases, like personal injury defense. And so it was very interesting because he was very fascinated about litigation finance. He's like teaching us all about this stuff. And he was saying like, let's pool some money together and like invest in lawsuits and like help people in this fashion. And like the question that kind of came to mind with Rami and I were like, how do you even know what a case is worth?
Right.
Like, what is it? Like, how do you underwrite this kind of case? And in the commercial lawsuit context, it's more complicated. It was like, we learned that like you need a lot of attorneys come together and do a lot of research and craft a story. But when it came to this question, we were like thinking about like, oh, what are other practice areas that we can do this in, right? Yeah. Like, are there any other types of cases that are a little bit more easier to predict?
Right.
And that's where Sam's like, oh yeah, I mean, I do personal injury defense. If you know all these factors and like policy limits and stuff like that, yeah, like, you could essentially predict what these cases sell for.
But creating an algorithm, that's hard as shit. I can't imagine that it was easy.
Yeah,
there's no way.
It definitely wasn't easy. And because like when we first went out to investors and talked to them about this, everyone was like, is this even a space that makes money? How is this even going to work? That's where
even a space
yeah,
that makes money.
Investors
a lot
had
of money.
Yeah, a lot of investors had no idea like how much opportunity there was in this space, especially in terms of like tech, the mundane processes that exist today, like the things that people are doing today, like manually and such. They weren't really interested in exploring this market and how they could help. And so we had a really hard time at the beginning, just kind of sharing like our idea and what we wanted to do and stuff like that.
When did you start EvenUp? Or when did the idea start? What year was this?
We were talking about it in late 2019, but we ended up actually pulling the trigger and doing this, actually building the company in like January of 2020.
You guys have grown so fast. I am so jealous and so proud of you, but still, like, that's crazy.
And no, it's honestly, like, it's really the team. We've been absolutely blessed to have amazing people join on all fronts, whether it be like engineering, data science, our go-to-market, so marketing, sales. Everyone is like, I think that we honestly like, and it will come. There will always be competitors that always come into the space and try and compete. I think they'll have their work cut out for them, because not only are people like very willing and capable, they're also very competitive. This team can do absolutely anything. So
that's amazing. Well, congrats.
Thank you.
I'm curious though, how does it work? Like if somebody wants to work with you guys, what does that process look like? How long does it take to get going? Just give us a little bit of background on that.
Everything that we do is essentially subscription in nature. It really is based on the number of demands that you need from us on a monthly basis. So whether that's like sense. One demand a month or 200, 300 demands a month.
So
it could be one.
You don't have like a minimum.
We have clients that even do like 6 demands a year.
That's
right?
amazing.
So we help the solo practitioners, we help the high volume shops, we help everyone.
Well, I could see how anybody would benefit.
Yeah.
Because the solo practitioners are doing so much of the work themselves that your help is needed. But the bigger firms also, if this is one department that they don't have to worry about, that's amazing.
Yeah. For the solo practitioners, it makes sense. Like they're doing everything. A lot of them are doing a lot of these things themselves. And so right. we're their Iron Man suit. But when it comes to the higher volume shops, we're talking about like 100, 200 cases a month and such.
Right.
I mean, all your people, like just imagine when you started your business and you were doing everything yourself, you feel so overwhelmed, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to learn how to like delegate and whatever.
I'm a great delegator.
I'm sure you are. We've kind of seen that all firsthand ourselves in terms of like
you mean internally or through your clients? Because some of our clients are awful at delegating, and I'm like, you need to delegate.
But then there even comes to a point where you've delegated it, and now the person that you've delegated it to
isn't delegating,
yep. Or like is basically at capacity. Right? They're just maxed out. They're doing everything they can. That's where like we want to be their resource. We want to be an extension of them to do these demands in a way that they would have done themselves if they had all the time in the world. This work that we do is not necessarily super easy. Looking for like missing bills, records, like missing providers, looking if there's like somebody missed like a TBI claim in here and stuff. So making sure that we claim for absolutely every single thing that's present in this case. It takes a lot of time and energy to go through this. And lastly, going through the information and articulating how did the client's life get flipped upside down. So one of the things that we collect information on is like loss of enjoyment and duties under duress. So we have sample surveys for this, but basically survey answers as to how the client's life was flipped upside down. What are activities they can no longer do or enjoy anymore since they were injured? This is where we take that information and we will craft the story of my client Ray used to be a national judo champion and now will never practice judo again. Here is the before photo of Ray at the last national tournament that he was able to participate in. That's the level of detail that we get into. So, of course, we talk about AI and tech and scaling and everything like that, but I just want to emphasize that everything that we do is customized to the case. It's tailored to the case. We do take the time to tell the story of each client because that's one of the most important parts. Coming back to this aspect of taking this off of your plate, because that takes a lot of time to do. The most important part is actually spending time with your client, coaching them how to be vulnerable, to talk about these feelings. So like if I think about when I grew up with my dad after the accident, and he was like, I can see that he was visibly in pain. I would always ask like, Dad, like, are you okay? And he would be like, oh no, I'm fine. Everything is fine. And I was like, oh, okay, knowing clearly that he's lying to me. But what we need to impress on our clients, our clients need to impress on their clients, on the plaintiff, is essentially there is no credit to being a tough guy or a tough gal. It's like, it's only going to hurt your case if you can't be vulnerable and kind of express like these details as to how your life has been impacted since this accident.
Your dad would be proud of you. I'm going to cry.
Thank you.
Okay. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you? And I get nothing for referring people to EvenUp. I want to be really, really clear about that. I really am picky.
If you want to learn more, you go to www.evenuplaw.com.
Evenuplaw.com. And we'll put it in the show notes for you guys.
Yeah, and you can download samples. You can check out some of our work without even having to talk to anybody. That's awesome. Totally fine. But if you are interested in learning more,
just text me, guys, and I'll give you Ray's cell phone number.
Yeah, you can text. You can text Maria.
I'm kidding.
No, I'm okay.
You're
I'm
cool
very,
with that? You're like Daryl Isaacs.
Yeah, I'm very much open to the whole. That's what I want to be.
Don't
like,
give anyone my cell phone number.
At the end of the day, I want to be available to folks. I truly and genuinely want to be a partner to the firm. And so if that's where we can be a thought partner in terms of figuring out how can we, amplify the growth at your firm and kind of streamline operations in any which way, that's where we're always down to talk with our customers in terms of like, what are different tasks like that are causing your team to kind of spend a lot of time on and basically distract them from doing other important aspects. Like if you have any crazy ideas in terms of what we can do to help, we're just as crazy as essentially.
All right. Well, we are actually live at Mass Towards Made Perfect. So, and Ray and I are co-hosting an event tonight. So
yes,
we're going to go party.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to everything Ray shared with us today. If you found this story valuable, please share it with someone you want to see succeed. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to help others discover the show. Until next week.